Hey everybody, Tara Green here, and I want to welcome you to my take on the very unusual, unique Cancer full wolf moon, January the 13th, 2025, the first full moon of the year. It occurs at 24 degrees of Cancer at 2:27 p.m. That's Pacific Standard Time, 5:27 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 10:27 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. So here you have the aspects here. Now, just before this, Mars was trine Neptune yesterday. Now, of course, you know that Mars is moving retrograde right now, and it has moved from Leo, where it started moving retrograde December the 6th. I'm going to talk a little bit about the fires in LA because it's kind of, sometimes astrology symbolism is so literal. Mars went retrograde in Leo December the 6th, and the sign of Leo is ruled by the sun, and California is the sunshine state. So since Mars retrograded back into Cancer December the 6th, it's in the sign of water, but Mars is in what they call in detriment when it's in Cancer because it's dignified or in a better spot in Capricorn. So when planets are the opposite to the sun, they're considered to be weak. So it's literally like no water, or difficulty with water, difficulty with homes. Okay, so the fire sign, Mars rules Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, of course, fire, and it also rules the sign of Scorpio, which is the sign of death and rebirth and transformation. So all of that Martian energy moving backwards brings along all those attributes. So you can see there's Mars right there on the ascendant. This chart is set for Washington, D.C. So in Washington, Mars is right on the ascendant. It's red hot. You can see that Mars is opposite Pluto and opposite the sun. This is a very, very intense situation that we've got going on here. I know everybody was hoping and wishing that 2025 was going to be super wonderful, but it is what I call the appetizer of the big shift year. So there's no light about this. It is wonky, it's crazy, just like this first full moon. Now I have drawn in some extra aspects here. There are some very, very unusual things going on at this full moon. Now, the sun trines Uranus. There's the sun over there, trining, which means it's in a positive aspect to Uranus. They're both in earth signs, they're supporting each other, and Uranus is the planet of chaos, and it rules the sign of Aquarius in modern astrology. So Uranus is the modern ruler of Pluto, sitting right there at 1 degree of Aquarius. And Aquarius is ruled by Saturn traditionally, and I like to use both. So Sun trine Uranus can be very inventive, thinking outside the box, very chaotic. That was at 3:13 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I'm going to stick with Eastern Daylight Time because that's where this chart is set for. The moon also, besides it trining Saturn earlier than that, squares Chiron in Aries. Chiron, the wounded healer, also right up there at the midheaven. This is the high noon point. Traditionally, this is the big career peak, the peak energy here. And Chiron has been at 19 degrees Aries, 18, 19, 20 since the last big solar eclipse of April the 8th, indicating where the big wounds are, the defenses, the weaknesses, again in fire, weakness in fire, right there, very literal. Okay, the U.S. is also having its Chiron return, tells you a lot right there as well. So during a Chiron return, Chiron takes 50 years to make one complete round, so the U.S. is approaching its 5th Chiron return only in almost 250 years now. So everybody, when they hit 50, 51, has their first Chiron return, and you feel very vulnerable. A lot of your old baggage that you haven't worked through comes up. You know how it is when you're trying to defend yourself too much, somebody kind of pokes at it, pokes at the wound. The moon also sextiles Uranus and Taurus. That's a good positive aspect. That means they're supporting each other. There's the moon there in Cancer, of course, 24. And then a very, very rare occurrence. The moon will occult Mars. So later in the day, 10:48 p.m. If it's clear, you'll probably see this. You'll see Mars, which is very bright in the sky right now because it's retrograde. In traditional Vedic or Indian astrology, they consider retrograde planets to be better and more positive because they're brighter. You can see them in the sky. So Mars is only this bright and close to the Earth when it is retrograde. And Elon Musk, who wants to send his Starship to Mars, has to wait for the next Mars retrograde 2 years from now before he can launch that. So Mars will disappear behind the moon, called an occultation. That's what occult means, to something obscure. I'm not sure if you can see it everywhere in the world, but you can go out and look at it and see the Mars disappearing and then pop at the other side. The moon trines Neptune in Pisces 11:46 p.m., which is a nice, very dreamy aspect. Now, because this is a full moon, you know, we're going to feel all the feels, and especially because of what's going on in LA and all over the world, big empathy, especially because the north node of the moon just entered Pisces, going backwards in Pisces on January 11th, and it is conjunct Neptune. So that aspect's going to really be in effect for most of the first few months of the year. So again, expect your psychic, empathic, moody, intuitive, and addictions and all those things to really be starting up if you can't deal with this level of intensity. Now, that's not what you're supposed to do. Okay, you're supposed to be brave, a brave Martian, and march on, because we're all going to get ready to go into this Aries heroic energy starting the end of March. So there's Jupiter right there, almost ready to stop moving retrograde. It's squaring Venus and Pisces, so those two are like fighting. So if you're having fights between you and your friends, your lovers, whatever, it's because of that. Venus and Saturn are also close together, so Saturn is putting limits, stability and maturity, testing obstacles on your love life, on your spiritual energy. You could be feeling very, very tired right now as this shift is just coming in with the North Node, our highest spiritual goal in Pisces now in water, after being in North Node Aries and South Node Libra for the last 18 months. Now we're into 18 plus months of North Node in Pisces, moving backwards. Okay, so you want to look at where Pisces is in your chart, and the North Node is moving from 29:59 degrees back to 0. Okay, over the next 18 months. The South Node, of course, at 29:59 degrees of Virgo, that's where we're eliminating, very literally. The North Node of the moon is traditionally called the dragon's head. We're finishing out of the year of the dragon and going into a lunar Chinese year of the snake, but snakes and dragons are kind of interchangeable in a way. The South Node, this is the head of the dragon, called the dragon's head. This is the south, the tail, the elimination. This is what's eating things up. When the lunar eclipse occurs, it's considered that a dragon is eating the sun. Now, I have heard someone refer to this Mars eclipse. Mars is an eclipse. I wouldn't get it confused with eclipses myself. I would call it an occultation, which sounds way more cool. Anyway, so look at where you have planets at 24 degrees, Cancer, Capricorn. 24 degrees Capricorn is very close to where Saturn and Pluto came together January 12th, 2020, 5 years ago already. That's when Prince Harry, boom, left being a royal. The next day, affected by that Saturn-Pluto conjunction at 22 degrees of Capricorn. So the sun is kind of revisiting that point. There's always sort of like ghostly images. So think back at what was happening. This was right at the beginning of COVID. And now here we are 5 years later already. It's hard to believe. So 24 degrees of Libra. If you have planets at 24 Libra or 24 Aries, close to where Chiron is, then you will be really feeling the pressure of this. Now, what I've outlined here is the grand trines, where you can see the big triangles, the Sun in Capricorn to Uranus and Taurus to the South Node in Virgo. Okay, so very earthy energy. And then there's all these little sextiles where the planets are supporting each other. And I kind of wanted to draw some extra points in here just to make this a real six-pointed star. Okay, so North Node Neptune, sextiling 60 degrees apart to Uranus and Taurus, sextiling the moon and Mars, sextiling the South Node, sextiling something called the Blaze star, which is a nova at 20 degrees of Scorpio. Now, this is, I think, very relevant to the blazing fires going on in LA. This is a nova that repeats, that blows up, is visible every 80 years now. They were expecting it to happen in 2024. It hasn't happened yet. So it's very interesting. I believe that this is a harbinger that it should come up. Also, this is a star here called Copula. It's also a whirlpool galaxy at 25 Virgo, which brings in that sextile. And then we can see here the galactic center at 27 degrees of Sagittarius, and Mars is in conjunct that point. So in some ways, there's a block going on as Mars is moving retrograde in Cancer, and we're feeling all the feels, and we're going back through all the childhood wounds and mother wounds and father wounds and anger and repressed anger, and especially on a full moon, very powerful one like this. It's really, you should be out there howling out your anger, your repressed anger. Tummy upsets are going to be very prevalent at this time. Be careful what you eat. The South Node in Virgo also represents you have to really carefully watch what you eat over the next 18 months because Virgo rules the upper intestines, the upper digestion. The moon always rules your stomach. So with the South Node in Virgo, it's very much about paying attention to what you eat, listening to your gut wisdom. The guts or the entrails were traditionally what were used by prophetesses or seers or divination experts to prophesy the future. So the gut is very important, your gut health. The gut has a brain. So doing lots of probiotics and fermented foods and just eating very simply. South Node in Virgo, we can still draw on the South Node. Simplicity, saving money, not needing new things, just keeping things very simple, humble, serving others. Mercury here in early Capricorn as well. Mercury is sextiling Venus there. So you can see there's lots of tension here. Mainly it's this Pluto-Mars conjunction and the Sun opposite Mars, which happens 2 days from now. So 2 days from now, the Sun will be up a couple of degrees, of course. And there's an interesting Sabian symbol, which I'm going to talk about. I think one of the Linda Hill, who is an expert on Sabian symbols, mentions, I believe it's 26 Cancer, and it's about, rich homes getting inundated, which is exactly what's happening in LA. Also in effect, Venus square Jupiter. Again, I'm going to mention that as well. That goes on tomorrow. And then the big Sun opposite Mars. The Sun is on the South Node as well at that point. South Node of Saturn. And Mars is still retrograde, of course, and it's going to stay retrograde till February 23rd. So my advice is to get some water. This is a completion. It's the beginning of the year, but we're completing old emotional issues around family, ancestors. Cancer is the fourth sign, which relates to the fourth house. They're not the same, but it is the fourth sign. So your ancestors, your emotional connection to your mother, to the unconscious, to the womb, to pre-birth, to birth experiences, to what you need to feel emotionally safe. I mean, this chart is exactly mirroring what's happening in LA, that Mars, angry Mars, opposite Pluto, destruction, the Sun in Capricorn, about a rebuild, whatever your conspiracy truths are around this. There's different theories around this. Of course, that's Neptune conjunct the North Node. So listen to your intuition, really feel into the situation. You can't help but feel it all, for sure, but also think outside the box with the Sun trine Uranus, see different ideas around this. I also wanted to play one of my favorite songs, which is, I'll see if I can tack this on at the end, perfect for this full moon. Get out there and howl, cleanse yourself with water, complete old lessons that you've carried over since the last full moon in 2024. And if you want to get in touch with me for a very in-depth reading, because like I said, we are going through a very, very big shift this year. This is the year of the big shift. The preview is that the planet Neptune is leaving Pisces since 2011 and just beginning to move into Aries on March the 30th, followed by Saturn. And then Uranus will enter Gemini and really speed things up because it'll be trining Pluto. And then Jupiter enters Cancer, where it's in a much better situation. So to have all those 4 planets move forward in 1 year hasn't happened since 548 BC. So over like 2,500 years ago. So this is a very, very unique situation that we're in. We're kind of like, yes, you could tap into your memory banks and say, what was this like last time this happened? And go back in time. All right, now I'm also going to look at the US chart and the Los Angeles chart, California chart, all of those things. And I'm going to Sedona, Arizona. So I just want to mention this. I will be in Sedona, Arizona from the beginning of March till the end of April, specifically to be there during the eclipses and to welcome Neptune into Aries for this beginning time. It's not going to stay in Aries this year. It will wait till February 20th, 2026 is the big D-Day when Saturn and Neptune meet at 0 degrees of Aries. This is a big deal, and this hasn't happened since 1861 with these planets in Aries. So if you want to join me in Sedona to do a one-on-one, a mentorship, a tutorship, private ceremony with me, I'm also going to be doing lots of readings from Sedona, so the energy in Sedona will amp up the energy that I'm putting out. I will connect to that energy and walk the land and really tune in. So I will be doing, some new moons, some full moons, and of course some eclipse channeling from there and workshops. So, want to get in touch with me? I'm at tarottarot.com, and I'm sending you many, many blessings.